Time to play the game!
Hello again. Let's keep going with hash include, but this time I'll explain the advantages of using files.h to protect your functions, etc., from prototype errors and so forth. Here's an example. I have a main that calls a function ft_fct. I added the prototype before. This function takes an int as a parameter and returns nothing. This function doesn't do much. It'll display cool on screen. What I can show you is, imagine you had a dozen files.c, which all called ft_fct. You'd have to add the prototype each time. So here, first advantage of hash includes, you'll be able to include this file everywhere. You'll just have to do it once. You'll then be able to change FCT's prototype without having to rewrite it in 10 files. You'll just write it in one single file and it'll be recopied during pre-processing before compilation. And your new version of ft_fct, but mainly it'll prevent other problems. Let me show you with a simple example. Imagine. This was my function ft_fct. I already added the include. I'm going to remove it. So ft_fct took an int as a parameter. I'm going to remove this too. Doesn't take anything anymore. So now my ft_fct doesn't take anything as a parameter. Now in my main, no modifications, I declare that ft_fct is going to take one parameter, an int. So I send it a parameter. And here, if I compile, here's what happens. With ft_fct.c, it compiled. It works. Except that I'm doing something absurd. Because here, I didn't pass anything as a parameter, whereas in my main, I passed something. We should have taken the problem in reverse. ft_fct should have taken something as a parameter, and I should have declared it didn't. And in this case, it should have checked for infos on the stack, and we wouldn't have had a problem. My code would have gone nuts. So here you see we can have a difference. Problems between files that really define functions and files that use them, where you've set a prototype. The way to prevent this is to use includes. So I've created a file fct.h, which is local, hence why I'm using quotation marks. And it defines my function ft_fct properly. I'm going to include it in the ftc.c file to show you its source, some sort of security. I'm also going to include it in my main.c. So instead of writing the prototype here, I'm going to include it. fct.h. And now I'm going to check that ftc.h I've created. So here we said it took an int as a parameter. So my main, no problem, it does take an int as a parameter. So let's compile and see what it does, and you'll see that considering there's a problem somewhere between the prototype and my function, now it's up to me to decide. And in the end, ft_fct doesn't actually, so I tell myself that actually the function I created doesn't take anything as a parameter anymore. So I need to change its prototype in fct.h. I'm going to change its prototype. So here I'm going to pass it void. Here. Recompiling. Once again, I have another error. But this time the error isn't in fct.c anymore. Now it's in the main.c. Because this time my main, as I've changed the prototype, well, my main tells me that, I've tried to call it passing it 10 as a parameter, and it doesn't work. So here too I'm going to have to remove the call with the parameter. And this time, it'll compile. I can even show you. If I do cpp of main.c, you see, here we see that we favor our fct.h file that's been rewritten. You can see the prototype written at the top. Normally, we'd like to avoid writing prototypes at the beginning of every file, but instead use includes from here now, but most importantly, don't forget to include the files.h in the corresponding files.c. So normally you should put your prototypes in files.h and include them to the appropriate files.c so that when you modify a function, you'll know straight away during compilation. And you'll be able to modify the files.h and files.c accordingly.